Hello, and welcome to today's VC Task Force Gary's Picks event for investors and startups. My name is Joel Rosenberg, Director of Business Development and Strategy for VC Task Force. VC Task Force is an organization where the venture community comes together to address critical issues, provide workshops and other events for the benefit of the venture and entrepreneurial communities. VC Task Force provides access to an extensive ecosystem of VCs, corporate VCs, and angel investors. You may ask questions anytime during the event, and time permitting, they will be answered live after today's interview. It is my pleasure to welcome Gary's Picks host, Gary Fowler. Gary is CEO and co-founder of GSD Venture Studios, an award-winning growth stage AI venture studio. Gary is also co-founder of the award-winning AI startup Eva.ai, as well as the investment firm DY Investments. Today, Gary will be interviewing special guest Amberlei Oates, founder and CEO of RadarQR. RadarQR is a hyper-intelligent dating application giving singles an on-demand immersive singles experience everywhere life takes them, not just through swiping. RadarQR has patented their revolutionizing inventions, are tech-forward with optimization of generative AI, and are on track to be the dating industry disruptor that singles are demanding. Prior to founding RadarQR, Amberlei dedicated 20 years to active duty in the military. Her motivation stemmed from a desire to establish a quicker, more intelligent, and safer method of connecting with other singles in person, eliminating the fear of rejection during face-to-face interactions. Through inventive approaches and advancements, she obtained a patent and now plays a significant role in transforming the transition from online to hybrid dating platforms. From a challenging childhood as an orphan to an unexpected journey as a tech founder, her determination knows no bounds. Take it away, Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. It's great to have Amberlei here. Amberlei, you've spent a lot of time in the military, but this is the first time, you talked about being an orphan. That's amazing. So, and then to go and develop this, how did that influence your desire to fund the company? I mean, was there some motivation there? What happened?
Coming up with the idea, I think my background in the military, it really taught me that I could do anything that I put my mind to, and then also my childhood as well. But funding it myself was a no-brainer because I felt really strongly about it. And I didn't even think about outside resources at the time. It was just like, okay, I've got this idea and I've got to make it happen. And, the further in the process that I got, people started kind of explaining to me the VCs and the angels and just all the fun ways that I can actually get the resources to get this off the ground. So, yeah.
So you go down through it. So, you spent 20 years in the military. What rank did you have coming in?
When I came in, I was an E1. I was the grunt of the grunt of the grunt. Literally the person doing everything I was told to do and doing all the chores. Yeah, so that's where you start. You start at the very bottom. You're almost like an E0 when you go to boot camp,
And so what drove you to go to the American Military University? How did you go from being an E1 to be a Lieutenant JG?
It's kind of funny. I got all the way to, I would say E5. I was on the list to promote for E6, and I was doing
What's
my
an
exit.
E5? What's an E5 or E6? So some people may not know.
Well, in the Coast Guard, it's a petty officer, second class, and I was above the cut for E6, which is a petty officer first class. And then my admiral and my captain sat me down, and we had a really funny relationship at my unit too, because I was the district awards officer. So my job was to go in and talk to the top dog every day and be like, this is what's on the table. This is why they deserve it. This is why the criteria isn't met, XYZ. So we got a lot of FaceTime, and I learned really early in my career that FaceTime was really important. And so I'm on my exit interview from this unit, and they sit me down and they're like, hey, have you ever thought about officer candidate school? We want to endorse you and we want to help you. And it was really funny because at the time I hadn't, I just always came to them with these ideas I had, and they're like, okay, make an SOP, a standard operating procedure of how it works, and we'll sign it, whatever you want to do. They really stood by me and supported these crazy ideas, I called them. But those crazy ideas were things that the other officers weren't even doing, and I wasn't an officer at the time. So I guess it stood out
What
to
does
them.
that mean? What the officers weren't doing? What do you mean? What were you doing
Um,
differently than them?
so being a junior officer, I can tell you, typically you're just doing what you're told. You're not going above and beyond and coming up with different ways to do different things. But for me, I was a petty officer and I wanted more responsibility. So it was a no-brainer for me to be like, hey, let me start this and do this, and they supported me. And that was kind of how I made that transition from enlisted to officer. It was definitely with their support.
But you had a lot of responsibilities as a petty officer, and it sounds like you were at the bottom of the rung, like an E1 as a Lieutenant JG, right?
As a JG or as an O1, you're an ensign, and then I promoted to O2, which is
Ah, I
Lieutenant
see.
Chief. Right.
And
So
so how much different is it being going from an ensign to Lieutenant JG?
it's a lot. It's a lot because the responsibilities are different. Kind of when you're an O1, you're learning how to be an officer, and you're actually the grunt in the officer world, which is really funny because when you're enlisted, you think when you become an officer, you've really made it. Like things are going to get easy. They don't. They go back to being really, really hard. And as a senior enlisted, going back to that junior moment, it can be really challenging if you don't have thick skin.
And so what's the difference? Like how would it be different? I'm just really curious. How do you relate? Because now you're at that officer level, but how do you
I
deal
mean,
with higher level officers? And after being a petty officer, you told people what to do, right? How was it taking the orders on the other side? Everybody telling you what the grunt work is to do.
that's true. So when I'm an officer, all the enlisted are taking, orders from me. But as prior enlisted, you're a Mustang. So you have that kind of respect for each other. Like you know what it's like to be a
So a Mustang, what's a Mustang?
So a Mustang means you were enlisted before. And it means too, like there's kind of a type of seniority amongst the officer world. So I might be an O1 and this might be an O1, but if I'm a Mustang and I've got background, I outrank this O1.
Do you really outrank him or her, or is it just
You do, I mean, you get paid more too as a Mustang, just the nature of having more experience sort of situation.
wow, that's amazing. Okay, so you went down through that. Now, how was it after you didn't go to college before the American military? How did you go? Were you doing that while you were enlisted, or did you do that when you were an officer?
A little bit of both. So, when I joined the Coast Guard, I was just doing my floor and getting out. I just wanted to get my free college and go. But I loved it so much I stayed. And once the admiral and the captain sat me down and they're like, "Hey, why don't you apply for OCS? We see this leadership in you." Then I started looking up the criteria, like what do I need to do to be an attractive candidate, right? What are the requirements? And one of the requirements was you had to have 30 college credits. Well, I had 0 at this time. So I just kind of started plugging away at it. And American Military University, it just seemed like a really good fit for me because if I deployed or anything like that, they'll stop your semester and let you pick right back up. So there was a lot of flexibility that I needed with my job. And yeah,
Was it all online or was it in person?
it's all online. Yeah. Which I mean, for me, I work really well online and I always have. So it was an easy fit
Wow,
for
that's
me.
amazing. And so when you went down through that journey, and were you stationed in Key West then for the whole time, or where were you stationed?
So I was stationed in Key West for my first 4 years. My second 4 years was in Miami, Florida. My third tour, which was also 4 years, was in Jacksonville. My next tour was in Kodiak, Alaska, and that was 4 years. And then after that, I went to Alameda, and my final tour was in San Francisco. And it
Now,
was
how
in, oh, go ahead.
is it, I love the thing. How do you go from being in freaking Key West to Kodiak Island?
It was crazy. I was really tan there.
Oh my- And so when you were up there, now did they have a lot of bears? Were they really serious? Were there a lot of bears walking around? And they say that black bears are nasty. Was that true?
This is real. This is really true, guys. Yeah. So the Kodiak grizzly is the largest bear in North America, and they're ginormous. I remember one day I went and did a tour, and I saw 23 Kodiak grizzlies just running around. It was wild.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so you go down through you go down through and you go from enlisted to becoming an officer. And then, but I mean, you develop this dating app, but you're with a lot of guys all the time. I mean, it seems like you wouldn't need to have a dating app if you're with people all the time. What was your drive and determination to make a dating app?
Well, I had just gone through a divorce and I had a young daughter. She was almost 3. And I knew, when I was before I was married, dating apps weren't ever on my radar. I was never using them. And then when I got divorced, I was instantly thrown into the single scene. And I'm like, okay, what are single people doing? How do I meet now? So I downloaded all the dating apps, and as I got to California, I was like, this is crazy. Like, I'm spending a lot of time and a lot of money, and I'd rather be with my daughter right now. I'm going on dates with complete strangers, and I don't think it's safe to really give them my information. Like, there were just so many different things that kind of led me into actually using dating apps. But then I was like, how do we do this different? How do we flip the script? Because what I'm experiencing as a single mother and a single woman, and I have an intelligence background. I was like, we could do this way smarter. So how do we fix that?
So when you did that, so like, what are the things, I know, there's catfishing and all this kind of stuff. Did you meet people that weren't anything like they said they were, where they were like?
All the time, Gary, all the time, all the time. Like, I'd show up on dates, and, sometimes the gentleman would be 25 to 35 years older than they said they were online. Sometimes they wouldn't show up at all. And, sometimes they didn't use their pictures. There were just all kinds of situations where I was just like,
They
oh,
didn't use, wait a minute, they didn't use their pictures?
yeah, yeah, sometimes that happens. That's just pure catfishing right there for.
Wow, that's amazing. And so what did you do? Like, come in on a date like that. What did you do when you see somebody they're like 30 years older than what you would think? Would you be nice to them, or would you just
Um,
say, well, hey, listen, I'm running a little late. I got to take care of my daughter.
I was too nice, if I'm honest. I was too nice. I remember one date, it was like, I get there and he's like, hey, I brought us a bottle of wine. It's in my car. Let's get it. Okay. He just wanted me to see his Maserati. I'm like, okay, got it. Duly noted. We walk inside. All the women are giving me bad looks because they think I'm a sugar baby because he misled me to be on this date in the first place. And I could very clearly
And he
see,
was 30. Was that the guy who was 30 years older?
yes, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And what'd you say to him? Did you say, listen, is there something wrong with this picture? How do you approach somebody
I
like
was
that?
actually very nice about it. I told him, I was like, listen, you're a handsome guy. You don't have to lie about your age. I think this could have been done a lot differently. Maybe I would have been interested, but the fact that you lied before our date is kind of a deal breaker for me. So, there were just a lot of things. I was trying to be
Wow,
as
that's
nice as possible.
amazing. And so, but you really were telling them, I wouldn't even think about going out with you if you'd
I
have.
mean, it's just not fun to be blindsided. You want to know who you're going to spend time with, and we don't like. I remember back in the day, when the internet came out, and it was like, don't meet strangers on the internet. And it was like, well, we've made it so common that we do it all the time. We're not even shocked with what we get. That's not a good thing.
Well, no, you're right about that. I actually remember, a long time ago in the early 90s, I actually remember I told my customer support person at the time, I came out and worked for corporations a couple times just to get some experience. And I said, he told me about the internet. And I said, I want to look at what's out there. And he said, oh, just a second. And he printed out like 150 pages of websites. And for like literally printed them, and I'm carrying them around with me going, this is really a pain in the butt. How can you look through these? And I'm not going to spend all my time looking at these websites. So, but you fast forward. So how do you differ than the apps that are out there like Tinder? You Tinder, you swipe, was it left and right? And I've used that before, right before I got married. I went down through that and used it. But how do you differ from those models, and why does yours work better?
Okay. Yeah, so when people think of dating apps, they think of swiping. And we are the complete opposite of that. So dating apps are designed for you to kind of window shop and connect in the platform and then meet. But ours is sort of seeing someone in real life and then connecting. So we're absolutely flipping the script in that way. And, ours,
Wait, can you say that one more time, Amber, so my audience can hear it? What? Tell them how you're flipping the script.
Oh, yeah, of course. We're flipping the script because our methodologies are absolutely the opposite of the dating industry. So the dating industry wants you to live within the platform. That's where they make their money and their connections. But we want people to go live in real life and connect while they're out, doing that. So you think about it, when you're in a room full of 100 people and someone's on your radar, you find them attractive, that's instant connection. But typically people won't say anything and they don't connect the dots because they don't know how. So on RadarQR, for instance, there are two different ways you could make that connection. I'll give you an example. So if that venue, say you're at a conference, if that venue were turned into a hotspot, you could just click the flame icon in the app, and then you could see, you have to check in, but then you see all the singles who are in the room with you. So you can identify very quickly and easily who's single. You can kind of figure out if this is the kind of person you'd be interested in, and then make your move in person or within the app. But we're kind of lowering the social and psychological barriers that people are facing in real life. Another example, which is one of my favorite, is every profile comes with a QR code. And that QR code can be shared in a lot of different ways. I met my husband using my prototype because I was walking down the sidewalk with a couple of my girlfriends, and we decided we're going to print our dating codes on cards and hand them out to cute boys all night long. So I'm walking down the sidewalk and I hand him a little card like this, and I didn't say a word to him. And then I get a message in the app and he's like, oh my gosh, what is this? Who are you? What is this? And so we met
Oh,
up.
wow, that's interesting. So you gave him
Yeah.
a card, and now did you go for just the cute guys? Was it all driven by looks?
For me, it was like, so, and two, the things that I find attractive aren't always visual in pictures. So it's a smile, it's a walk, like it's the way someone laughs with somebody, it's seeing people in their natural element, if that makes sense. So, and that was another thing.
Sounds if somebody's married though, and you give it out to them.
Then they just don't respond, and that's
I
fine.
see.
But there's no rejection. They're not telling you, hey, I can't, I'm married,
They just don't respond. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting.
Exactly.
So what did he say then? What happened? What was the rest of the story?
He was like, I gotta meet you. And I was like, okay. So we meet up. And the worst part about this story is that he's actually in the Coast Guard too,
He's in the Coast Guard? What rank was he?
which I was in the Coast Guard. He was the same rank as me. And we worked at different,
Really? And
we
where were
worked,
you? Was that on Kodiak Island or where was it?
that was in California. So I worked on the Alameda, it's called Coast Guard Island. And he worked on Treasure Island, which was in San Francisco. So we were at different bases. We had never crossed paths with each other before, but then we just happened to be in the Coast Guard. And I was like, oh, that's my
Wow, that's amazing. And so so what was the first conversation like?
The first conversation was just, he wanted to talk about how I started this app and why. And, he was like newly divorced as well. So, and he's like, I haven't done any of the dating apps yet. And I was like, well, don't, just date me. So,
Oh, there you go.
yeah, it just kind of clicked. Yeah. And, yeah, again, like I couldn't tell anything about him when I saw him walking down the sidewalk, except that I liked the way he was engaging with his friend and I thought he was attractive. So I handed him a card.
Well, that's great. So when you go down through and use this, tell us a little bit about generative AI and how you plan on integrating that.
So we're actually in the brand new phase of putting it in. It should be completed within the next 2 weeks. So we're really excited about that. But we are using generative AI to help our singles, kind of like a wingman or a co-pilot for the everyday real life situations. So I've noticed that other dating apps are also starting to put in AI, but ours is just going to have a little spin that also helps in real life situations. So, say you're at a coffee shop and you're not really sure how to approach somebody. Well, typically, like, go say hi, but a lot of people don't have the tools that they need to kind of get through that
Oh,
psychological.
there was I remember seeing a movie about that, the Matchmaker or something. There was a guy who played Kevin, I can't think of his name, but he would like go out and help people find dates and introduce them to people. I forget the name of it, but it was like a co-pilot. He would go out and say, do this, say this, dress like this. It was unbelievable. So you're gonna make it real.
We're already making it real. And the fun part is nobody's using AI the way that we will be. So we are pairing actual intelligence with artificial intelligence. So we call it AI meets AI.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
They're
So
really,
you look at the, how do you see yourself stacking up against Match.com and some of those places?
honestly, we hope to get the attention of Match.com. We hope that someday they acquire us and we hope that they will transition to the hybrid platform as well, because there's not a hybrid platform on the market other than us. And we know that there is a really big market for it. The trends out there, you'll see people walking around with QR codes and they're going viral for doing it. But a lot of people aren't tech savvy and can't figure this out, but our platform is doing that already for people. And, dating apps are spending millions of dollars to try to do these singles mixers to get their people together in real life. But on our app, it makes every day, everywhere, a real life matching opportunity. So we're solving their problem without them even knowing who we are yet. So we want to get their attention. We really think there's a lot that we can offer the industry.
Now, do you have any challenges with, if you're for instance, at a conference, you'd sometimes meet people that are potentials. Do you have any issues with the conference not wanting to get involved with liability and that kind of thing? They're kind of like, they don't want to make it a hotspot. How do you get around that?
We haven't had any conferences turn into hotspots yet, but
Because I think that would be interesting because it's a one chance you get to meet people like yourself, right?
I mean, it's going to make everything really fun too. Like not only conferences, but festivals and stadiums. Like imagine going to your favorite concert, seeing a
Burning
QR
Man.
code. What's that?
Burning Man.
Exactly. I thought of Burning Man when I made these cards because I was like, connectivity isn't always great there. They need this. Yeah, imagine being able to go to your favorite spots and checking in and making it a different experience. So legally, we haven't had any issues yet. We do have our lawyers on standby, and I have a cybersecurity background as well as victim advocacy. So I came at this with a point of view of preventing stalking and harassment at all cost. And you have to physically check in to be seen on the radar. And we also have a safety timer that we developed and patented, and that changes the way that geolocation works, and it makes it a lot safer.
So what would you say out there to those veterans that are out there not sure what to do after the military? And based on your own experiences, what would you say to them if you had them right in front of you right now? What would you tell them?
I would say do what makes you happy, because it started as an idea, but it was an idea I couldn't turn off. So that was when I knew I had to follow it. And the good thing about leaving the military is you will have a pension, you will have something. And having that is better than trying to start a company without that, and I mean, my pension does not cover all of the development and things that I need to do. But it does help to have just like a little bit of a cushion there. Yeah.
No, that's great. Plus you have your husband working too, right?
He's working right now.
No, that's great. So you go down through it. And you look at it. So what's the future? How do you paint the future? Let's look at 2 or 3 years from now. Where do you want to be?
The future is wild. Like they have these, oh my goodness, I had wrote them down, but I forgot what they are. They're basically like glasses that you can use that are smart glasses. And our app in the future is going to let you literally look around and see who the singles are. Like you're not going to need your phone up to do this. So that's really exciting. The future, it's going to be real and it's going to be real fun.
Sounds like you need to have a partnership with Meta or Apple.
They just don't know who I am yet, Gary.
But
They
they know who I am.
Yay. Yeah,
No, it's interesting. I think, those are some of the things to look at, right? Because who would use it? And then LinkedIn, you're at a conference, you want to meet certain people. Imagine it's like Sales Navigator on steroids.
I know. And then even restaurants and bars, we're making them hot and we're putting them on the spot. So it's a good place to be.
No, that's great. So thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today for another edition of Gary's Picks. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Joel?
Amberlei, that was amazing. Your story is amazing, and I was glued to my set here. Really insightful. Also, how you you followed your passion, you stuck with it, and also really the key, key differentiators that you talked about, really, really important, not just from obviously a dating site standpoint, but also from a business standpoint, really, really critical to succeeding. So anyway, I applaud you. Everybody, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. And until then, be well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Joel. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.